The year is 2004. You're sitting in front of your trusty PS2, your thumbs are sore, and the glow of a CRT is the only light in the room. The PlayStation 2 is the king of the world, but there was one thing it didn't have. The PS2 didn't have Halo, and boy did the media want us to believe that this game was going to change that. What's going on, guys? I'm Dan Gnadt, the PS2 Guy, and today we're strapping on our combat boots and heading back to the grim gray battlefields of Vekta. We're talking about Killzone today. For those of us, or for a lot of us, this game is a core memory. It was gritty, it was loud, and it looked like nothing else on the console. But it also carried the heaviest burden in gaming history, the title of Halo Killer. Today, I want to look at the history of this game, the trivia, the legacy, the game that launched Guerrilla Games into the stratosphere, and give you my honest thoughts on why I love it, flaws and all. Let's rewind a bit. Before they were making robot dinosaurs and Horizon, Guerrilla Games was a Dutch studio known as Lost Boy Games. They weren't exactly AAA titans. They were making Game Boy Color titles. So imagine the pressure. Sony sees the Xbox dominating the shooter market with Halo, Combat Evolved, and they need an answer. Guerrilla steps up with a project originally codenamed Kin. The hype for this game was insane. Magazines, specifically official PlayStation 2 magazine UK, famously plastered Halo Killer on all their covers before the game was even finished. But here is the trivia bit that people forget. Guerrilla Games never actually called it a Halo Killer. That was all media hype. They weren't trying to make a sci-fi arena shooter with floaty jumps. They were trying to make a gritty, sci-fi World War II-like movie that you could play. And you could see the difference immediately. The Helghast weren't alien covenants. They were terrifyingly human. Their design was heavily inspired by the Kerberos Panzer Corps from the anime Genro, mixed with some very obvious historical totalitarian imagery. It gave the game a look that was unmistakably iconic. Now, I want to get into my personal thoughts here because I genuinely have a soft spot for this game. While I loved Halo, I really enjoyed Killzone as well. Two very different games, but I loved this game. First off, the weight. Most shooters at the time had a fast and arcadey feel to them. Killzone felt heavy. When you reloaded a gun, you felt the mechanical crunch. When you sprinted, the camera bobbed violently like you were actually carrying 80 pounds of gear. I absolutely loved this. It made the combat feel desperate and grounded. And the graphics for a PS2 game, come on. This game looked great. Now, of course, there were some slowdowns and some issues with the glitches here and there, but it really was great looking, and I think holds up well today. Guerrilla pushed the PS2 to its absolute breaking point. The texture work on the weapons, the dynamic lighting, the sheer amount of geometry on the screen, it was a technical marvel. The presentation was top tier. Even the orchestral score by, Joris Deman, it just screams epic space opera. I loved the character system. You weren't just one guy. You had Templar, the standard soldier, Luger, the stealth assassin, and Rico, the heavy weapons guy, who we all love to hate, and Haka, the half Helghast spy. This added much replayability to the game. Luger could crawl through vents and where others couldn't. Haka could regenerate health and walk past Helghast traps. It gave the game a tactical depth that Halo didn't really have in its campaign. But we do have to be real. I'm the PS2 guy, not the PS2 apologist. Killzone had problems. Remember when I said they pushed the PS2 to its breaking point? Well, sometimes it broke. The frame rate in this game could be brutal. We're talking dips into the teens when things got chaotic. And because they used special rendering technique to make the graphics look so good, we got a lot of texture pop in where the world literally loads in front of your face. And let's be honest, the AI wasn't the smartest. You have Helghast soldiers running into walls and standing out in the open screaming at you while you lined up a headshot. It wasn't a Halo killer. It was a flawed masterpiece. It aimed for the stars and it hit the moon. But you know what? That was enough for me. Today, those flaws can be mostly overcome by running this game in an emulator with high speed disk access turned on and overclocking the emotion engine a little bit in the settings and cranking up the rendering resolution. This is a great example of a game that can be a joy to experience through emulation. And on the Retroid Pocket G2, it's portable gaming crack. Before we wrap up, I've got some trivia for the hardcore fans out there. The Big Head mode. Like all PS2 games, this had cheats. If you held L1 and entered a specific button combination on the menu, you could give every enemy a giant head. It made those headshots way easier. A silly cheat to be sure, but it can be a little fun. The Shooterman. If you create a profile named Shooterman, case sensitive, it would unlock all the levels and characters instantly, a classic dev cheat. And split screen bots. This is a feature I miss in modern gaming. You could play multiplayer offline with bots. I spent hours fighting bots on the Beachhead map before I finally purchased the network adapter. So, Killzone might not have been the Halo killer, but it started a legacy. It spawned an amazing sequel on the PS3 and some great games for the PSP, Vita, and the PS4. This was the beginning that put Guerrilla Games on the map. For me, it's a game that represents the ambition of the PS2 era. It wasn't perfect, but it had soul. It had style. And it had those glowing orange eyes staring at you through the fog. Oh yeah. But what about you guys? Do you remember the hype? Do you love the heavy gameplay, or did the frame rate drive you crazy? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this trip down memory lane, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to Dan Gnadt, the PS2 Guy, for more nostalgia from the greatest console generation of all time. Keep playing, and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for joining me, Dan Gnadt, the PS2 Guy. Stay retro.